What should you do if your Addi knitting machine shows signs of needing some lubrication? Here's what Jack did for me, and it works wonderfully. This is my Addi machine, working like a champ as you can see, cranking quietly and beautifully. A while back, Jack changed the crank for me to an antique one that we found, which also has more mechanical advantage. So I enjoy that, but this is basically just a regular old Addi king-sized.
All right, what we're doing is reviewing the process of lubricating the Addi knitting machine. And what I've used is a white lithium grease. I know that sounds strange coming from me. It's not a silicone product, but on this particular machine you need the lithium-based lubricant. In the olden days, we built engines with a product called Lubriplat, which is a white lithium-based lubricant. But you can see it all on the ring once we pulled it off.
This was originally all red, and everything you see white is that thick lithium grease.
Now here's a cautionary note. When you take the ring off, you should rotate it until the number 1, right here, so that the number 1 goes back on the first black tooth.
Or however you have yours aligned, if you're happy with it.
Right,
you take note of it and make sure you realign it that way.
But it is timed, and anything that's timed should go back the way the factory set it. But you can look all in here at the white lithium grease, and all we did was take this inner ring out, which I'm not going to do because it disturbs the needles. But if you take these 4 screws out and move this inner ring carefully, then you can put the lube right between each needle. Then it doesn't hurt to put a little bit between each needle at the top. That keeps them in their track really well.
Now, we did this a couple years ago. Didn't say a word about it because we didn't want to encourage people to do something that was untested and possibly unsafe.
Yes.
But I have used mine for 2 years without any problem. The only thing that had to be done is cleaning off some of the surfaces of the needles. We unavoidably got a little smeared where we didn't want it. You don't want it on your hat. It doesn't really do any harm. It can be washed out, but it's not easy.
All right, now, like I said, the inner ring comes off carefully, and then you can put the grease between each needle. But there's a channel between each needle body right there. And what you want to do is put a little to either side of that channel from the top, and that'll also do the same thing. But you got to get this ring off, no matter how you do it.
They can't see it. He means the red ring.
Right, the red ring. Now we're going to reinsert it, making sure that the first black one, gets into its spot. And you see how I'm having to wiggle it to get it past the needles. And what we're going to do is rotate one time just to make sure.
Be very gentle with everything not nailed down.
Right. But see, now we know it's smooth enough. The first few needles come up and down. It should be okay. Now we're going to reinstall the outer ring. And if you'll notice, there's still lithium grease on that outer ring.
White smears.
Right.
Yeah, actually, I'm not noticing any deterioration of the grease or loss of it for the last 2 years. Well, and you may have noticed as I rotated it, it's very quiet. Mine was originally a little noisier.
It was noisy. Here's another cautionary note. When you go to put this ring on, of course, this thread guide goes right over the top of your row counter. And the screws must line up with the screw holes. But if you try to line them up and drop it down in there, look, we're trying to hit that first needle. So actually tip it out a little bit, get it down. Once it's seated, then you can rotate it around.
This is easy to break, so be careful.
So are the needles. But then you can rotate it around and line your screw holes up. And you're pretty well done as soon as you put the screws back in the groove.
Now, as a knitter, I strongly suggest you run 30 or 40 rows of waste yarn through before you knit your masterpiece hat after doing this greasing job, because you may find you got a little grease where it didn't belong. We have not found it to hurt the plastic on the machine at all, and the tubes that I have found for sale say they are safe for plastic.
Right. And again, just like all reassembly, get your screws lined up, start them into their spot, don't tighten anything till the last one's in place. So you got a little wiggle room to get everything lined up just right.
So now we're about 2 minutes from knitting a hat again.
Oh yeah. I think we spent maybe 30 minutes the first time when we lubricated it, because I wanted to go in carefully to make sure I was seeing things like the timing of the ring numbers and how everything was set up. There's also a cam inside of here in that inner ring that lifts the needle up. And
That's what makes it knit at all.
You have to get that right back in where it's supposed to be.
Now, as far as lubricating, once it's assembled, occasionally I use Bond Easy Knit Spray, which is a silicone spray, and it's the only silicone spray that works for me. So I don't use lithium grease on the outside at all.
Right. All of that grease should be contained on the inside. That's where it's designed to be. And like you said, that keeps it from getting everywhere. And you're right, a light silicone spray, because these needles are constantly contacting. Ooh, I like that.
Now, people are always asking us, I found this or that or the other silicone spray, and it's more available where I live than what you suggest. None of them are okay. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but Bond Easy Knit Spray can still be ordered in the U.S., and it's the only one I have ever liked. Everything else I've ever tried on the outside of this, I've immediately washed off because it causes performance problems.
Right, right. All formulas are not the same. That's why we do a lot of research before we recommend a product, so that we can say absolutely this does work, we use it.
And if you will notice on the cans that say silicone spray in really big letters, the small fine print lists a whole bunch else.
Right.
A whole bunch.